liar. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Thursday, October 23rd, 2025. Time to acknowledge that we are now at war in the Pacific Ocean as well. Just one of those morning things you have to do these days. Tear down the White House. Check. Declare or not declare war. Just go straight to war. Do not pass code. Do not collect $200. In fact, pay $2 million. And launch a war in the Pacific. The attacks on boats that all you can really say at this point is the Trump administration, which as it happens is full of liars and weirdos and grifters, is saying, and that's all they're saying. And that's all they're doing is saying, but that may be all they're saying at the moment too, that, these boats are totally full of drugs, and although we keep blowing them up and we keep sending out video of us blowing them up, no one ever sees drugs flying all over the place. Nonetheless, they're full of drugs, damn it, and that's all there is to it. And in addition now to attacking boats in the Caribbean Sea, we're now attacking them on the other side of the, Central American, is it an isthmus? Is that what it is? And it just open, warfare moving over to the Pacific. We had just begun that phase of it, I guess, and I still have to say it's we, because it is the United States of America, and we can't disown them yet. But had our first attack on a boat in the Pacific yesterday. Same scenario, full of drugs going from somewhere, and we don't know who the people are, except we know who the people are. We don't know what they were carrying, except we know what they were carrying. And before we even got to report to you that there was one strike in the Pacific, we're now up to two. Thankfully, there are still people at major newspapers who do things like count how many times we've done this and how many people are killed this way, though, I guess the count is still how many times has the administration provided any information that would go anywhere in terms of establishing that this is what they say it is. I don't know. So, we'll catch up with things and do our best to figure out what this is, right at the same time tearing down the East Wing of the White House. So I guess warrants, if not for Greg, then at least for Donald Trump. A fanfare today, sinister, imbued with symbolism and meaning, and very long. Not very long. We can make it go away, and we can make it go away right now. As a matter of fact, Greg Dworkin has snuck in because there's no sound. It doesn't make any ringtone when you come in. And anyway, he's been hanging out in the background the whole time, waiting to jump out and scare you for Halloween. Good morning, Greg. How are you?
Good morning. So I'll just do the sound effects. One okay. Ringy dingy, two ringy dingies. Right. Remember that?
Yes, I do. And that we're back on the theme of counting how many times something happens. Two ringy dingies.
Is this
and
the
two
party to whom
boats.
I am speaking?
Allow myself
Lily Tomlin,
to introduce
back in the day.
Myself. Yeah, it's sort of a callback to that almost in a way.
Well, we're going to do Imperial Margarine in May as well.
Oh, yeah. And that was the Imperial March.
I got a clip for you. I clip I want to play.
Oh, I could have used this as fanfare. All right.
No, this is from last night's It Didn't Change Any Votes debate in New York City.
Another one.
With Zohran Mamdanized, the second of two.
Look, he's
Curtis
in the middle.
Sliwa declared he won after our discussion about Sliwa the other day. You're probably not surprised.
Yeah.
But it's not clear that he did. He spent most of his time as the first debate going after Cuomo, while Mamdani just sat by. This time Mamdani was a little bit less passive. Didn't make any mistakes again, and because he's in the lead, he's basically going to be the next mayor. But this is a part of the debate where one candidate gets to cross-examine another candidate. They set that up so you talk to them directly. That's not true in all debates.
Yeah,
Often you have to speak to the moderator. Like in Congress, you have to speak to Mr. President, even though he's not the president. He's just whatever.
Yes, well,
president,
he's the
temporarily
chair
of the Senate or whatever the
Senate
jargon
does
is.
the president. thing.
Yeah. So this is Mamdani directly speaking to Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo.
Ew. All right.
And it's introduced by a former Cuomo staffer who was harassed by him named Lindsey Boylan.
Oh, what introduced by? Like, they have a whole segment on it?
No, on Twitter, when she posted
okay.
the video,
I was like, where does she come
says,
in?
I'm one of those women Mamdani's talking about. I've been legally abused by Andrew Cuomo for years after being harassed as a staffer. Now he wants to be mayor. Shame on you, Andrew Cuomo, and thank you, Zohran Mamdani, for speaking out on this injustice. And this is
a couple
Mamdani,
more votes to be had.
What he said and why she commented that way.
All right, debate cross-examination.
Mr. Cuomo, in 2021, 13 different women who worked in your administration credibly accused you of sexual harassment. Since then, you have spent more than $20 million in taxpayer funds to defend yourself, all while describing these allegations as entirely political. You have even gone so far as to legally go after these women. One of those women, Charlotte Bennett, is here in the audience this evening. You sought to access her private gynecological records. She cannot speak up for herself because you lodged a defamation case against her. I, however, can speak. What do you say to the 13 women that you sexually harassed?
Oh, please hold your applause until he's done with all 13 answers.
Please hold your applause until he's done with politics.
If you want to be in government, then you have to be serious and mature.
I did not know that. All right. I'm not certain what that means.
That's his answer.
But that's the whole thing? Yeah, I didn't cut
more,
it off.
But like,
all right.
You're credibly accused of abusing all these people, one of whom is in the audience staring at you.
Yeah.
Well, you have to be mature. What does that mean?
All right.
What does that even mean?
Yeah, I'm puzzled as to what that is supposed to mean.
Anyway,
but
remember
I
when I read that article to you about Cuomo has 18 days left? Yeah. Well, he's got like 13 days left or 12 or whatever. He's done soon. So that was basically the highlight of the debate. And nothing that Sliwa said in attacking Cuomo was any worse than that. On the other hand, it puts into perspective everything Sliwa said the other day about Cuomo. You're asking me to drop out? You? Yeah. The guy who killed all the seniors and is a sexual harasser? I mean, Cuomo is just incredibly unpopular online when you read about him. You'd think he was the most unpopular person in the entire race. But the truth is that was Eric Adams, and he's gone now. So.
Well, yeah, Cuomo, he did go. And he went over, he's been on vacation, I think.
Well, he went to the Knicks game. He and Cuomo were sitting together in the front row. I mean, I can't imagine a worse visual. Cuomo goes to show that, I'm a New Yorker. I'm rooting for the Knicks. If he really wanted to show he was a New Yorker, he'd be at the Nets game. But that's another story. Or maybe it was the Nets game. I don't really know. It doesn't matter. What I do know is that he was sitting next to Eric Adams. And that just everything.
Odd, don't you think? Yeah. What a choice. I wonder who set that one up and why. I mean,
and why they're still working for him.
I was just thinking, like, which camp had that idea? And I don't know, but it's
probably Sliwa. I mean, it was
maybe. Well,
because Sliwa has said that Adams and Cuomo really need to share a jail cell together.
I guess so. Gosh. Well, I will say this for Mamdani. I guess you have no choice but to bring that up, really, honestly. And it's your job as the candidate in the cross-examination section. But, I don't love that kind of confrontation for myself. Normally, that's fine. Other people.
Are you kidding? It's a pay on to Trump voters. That's who he's going after.
I just think it's interesting, like, that moment of like, I really have to do this in front of oh my gosh, but I mean, that's the job, and he rises to the occasion and says what needs to be said.
If you say what needs to be said,
that's the guy you need.
What needs to be done. You never know.
Right. I don't know. It's a pretty good indicator. And very rough. And also, I guess also it's interesting too, like finally the payoff of that. Well, what do you say to these women? It's kind of, And what's he really going to say? Of course, the fact that he then says nothing
you put
at all
Cuomo on the
insane.
defensive, on the back foot, so to speak, and he couldn't deal with it, and that's important.
It's interesting too. Just I because my conclusion to it is like, as opposed to, well, what do you say to these women? Which is sort of, I don't know, it offers an escape to him. But he's not going to take it, so go for it.
It doesn't, because what could he possibly say?
Other than,
going to remind you that you really dislike him.
Right. Yeah. The only thing you can do there is, I guess, the only human answer there is to say, well, I offer my deepest apology. I don't know what I was thinking, but you're going to then lose. But you were going to lose anyway, so I don't know. But then I don't know. I guess my own answer, or my own conclusion to that as well, when they're sitting in the audience tonight, and my question to you is, what the hell is wrong with you? What kind of human being are you? Get out of here. Why are you even here? I can't believe you're telling people should be voting for you. What do you have to say to the rest of the country or the rest of the city who should be astonished that you would have the guts to ask for their vote? How about, but that's me. I don't love those confrontations.
My role
Nothing
here
wrong with what he said.
My role here is to remind you of stuff you already know.
Oh, all right.
And one of the stuff,
I know that.
One of the stuffy things I'm going to remind you that you already know is about political strategy.
Right. Oh, yeah. He has to win an election. I forgot about that whole thing. Yeah.
Young, energetic, fresh, when everybody else is old, as they used to say about John Lindsay.
Okay.
Everybody else is tired.
He's old now.
Now, he campaigns in a different way.
Yeah.
He had an ad
a way that wins.
A couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Basically, that said, listen, I've heard all the criticism that says perhaps I'm too young. I'm only 33. I have a major announcement as of this weekend. I'm 34. And then, he's got all this stuff with what street food is he going to ask today? A brilliant smile, good manner. Everybody likes him. But
Andrew Cuomo does not like him. Yeah.
The reason that falls under political strategy is you have to establish your own likability credentials before you go negative on somebody the way Mamdani did on Cuomo. Cuomo can't do it because it just reminds you don't like him.
Yeah.
When Mamdani does it, it reminds you don't like Cuomo.
Yes.
When Sliwa does it, it reminds you don't like Cuomo. Sliwa's a supposed truth teller. It's all negative for Cuomo.
Yeah.
And that's what happened in that little clip. It's just really interesting.
It was interesting. And I also took away the extra lesson, though I'm not voting in it right. The extra lesson for me was, okay, well, I've learned that I like Mamdani. He's personable. And I guess if anybody's worried about his age or experience, but can he do the job? And then the answer is he's got a tough assignment. He has to stand up in front of everybody and talk about something really unpleasant and attack a major political figure. And he did it. That was the job. He did it. It's okay. Now I know he can take on tough and unpleasant assignments, although he might have enjoyed that. I don't know.
Right. No, nobody enjoys it.
But if he did,
then enjoy fine. That if you're a sadist.
Yeah. Well, it's I say this with sadness. You're a disgusting molester.
Yeah, I say this with sorrow rather than anger, but you're a disgusting person.
Yeah. Well,
that's exactly right. And
incredibly
that's
done.
Supposed to take.
Okay, good. That's an interesting clip. Thanks, Greg.
All right.
Would have missed that one.
Let's talk about somebody else authentic. And somebody challenged me yesterday after listening to the show and said, how can you say Graham Plattner's authentic when he does this, that, and everything else? Well, authenticity has nothing to do with whether it's good or bad.
True. Or you could be an authentic
does it
liar.
really reflect what you actually think?
Yeah.
And in that sense, he's authentic. Sometimes he's authentically bad, but he's authentic.
Yeah. I see what you mean. I think so.
He's authentically good, and he's authentic. So for the first time, I actually saw a poll, and don't get too carried away. There's still a year to go. But if you thought that anything that's come up until now, at least from October 16th through October 21st, which are the dates of the UNH poll, if you thought any of that was disqualifying,
I did.
You got to go back and check the calendar and see how old you are.
Oh. I'm 34.
Well, now.
Yeah.
But you were 33 when you were thinking all that other stuff.
Right. How old was I when the poll was in the field?
Maine Senate Democratic primary, UNH poll, 1016 through 1021. Graham Plattner, 58. Janet Mills, 24. Also ran. David Costello, 1%. Also ran Jordan Wood, 1%. Don't know, undecided,
ran.
14. That's not very much, a year in advance.
Undecided. Yeah, that's true.
Write in someone else, 1%.
Okay.
Plattner's doing okay. I mean, the
He
voters will
was.
vote. There's a primary. They'll decide. How much between now and then are other things going to come up? I don't know. But sometimes the ideal time that you want a scandal to hit is about a month before the actual election, like with Jay James in Virginia, which we'll get to. That's his name, right? Jay James?
Sure.
Perhaps by the end of this election, I will have learned it.
Yeah, I'm going to have to find out because I got to go do voting. But he will be in a certain column, and he's not Miari's.
And perhaps by the end of this election, I will finally remember that Ed Gillespie was running against Northam, not McAuliffe, and stop bringing McAuliffe up all the time.
You did do that the other day, didn't you? Okay. Yeah, all right. No problem.
I bring up the colorful people.
The point was about Gillespie anyway.
But the point was about Gillespie and caravans.
Yeah.
So a year from now, is any of this stuff going to matter? Because it's all known. It's all old news. I don't know. But that's why you have primaries. So we'll see. Right now, Graham Plattner is doing fine. And right now, the people who are most tuned in, who are the activists, who are probably on the Democratic Party side, more left-leaning than the general electorate, or even the Democratic electorate for when the primary actually takes place, is not demanding Plattner leave.
Okay. I mean, you could also make a gradual exit.
You could. Well, we'll see what happens. That's what's going on.
All right. Well, I think they would do well with another poll, and I'm sure that Plattner is probably saying, let's do that one. Let's find out what happened afterwards. Well, all right. I'm willing to allow. I mean, what else can I do?
In Maine's second congressional district, former Governor Paul LePage holds a narrow lead over incumbent Democrat Jared Golden.
Oh, that one. Okay.
Now remember, there are parts of Maine that are very conservative.
Yes, that one. I guess.
And there are parts of Maine, like southern Maine, that are not.
Right. Okay. Well, they have to, I don't know. They have to live side by side. So, all right, I'll be watching the polls for a year until we finally decide who's going to run, and then we can do the poll as between Democrats and Republicans, the one that,
the
matters.
only poll that counts is in 2 weeks, at least for Virginia and New Jersey, so we're going to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, right, okay.
But before we get to that, I do want to throw this in. CBS News poll, a majority of California voters, 62%, said they would support Prop 50, which would enact a mid-decade redistricting of the state's congressional map, adding probably around 5. We'll see, depending upon how extreme Republicans get. Maybe they can jigger it to be more than 5. We'll see. But that's going to pass, and that's why the anti-Prop 50 people have stopped spending money on it. It's going to pass, and there's not much that they can do.
Okay.
Now, a piece of news out of Indiana, which I thought was of interest.
Sure.
And that is that this is from the Indy Star. Indiana Senate Republicans don't have the votes to push redistricting, but Mike Braun isn't giving up. It's like in the House. No. Yes, that sort of thing.
Yeah, okay.
So it's not a done deal until it's a done deal. They're trying to get 2 more seats out of Indiana. They don't think they have all the votes. Privately, Trump people think they do, but Trump people are stupid and they don't know how to count, I don't know. On the other hand, they're very good at storm arming, so I don't know. But here's something of a shocker poll as well, and I have to mention this in context. 2026 generic congressional ballot polling.
Okay. Generic ballot.
Also, sometimes these days you see it online as GB.
Oh, really? Okay.
Generic ballot.
Great Britain.
If you see that, you'll know what's going on.
Okay.
All right.
I won't.
In October 2021, GOP was up 47-44. In October of 2022, when the election took place, GOP was up 49-45. That was in 22, when Biden was president. Back when Trump was president, October 2017, Democrats were up 49-41. Always this thermostatic response. Whoever's in the White House, the other side generally does better.
Trump can't
October
understand
2018, that. Democrats had a lead in the generic ballot, 49-42. In that year, 2018, 2 years into the Trump term, I think the Democrats won 40 some odd seats, 44, something like that.
Sounds about right.
with a 7-point lead in the Q poll.
All
Now,
right.
today,
Yeah.
October 2025,
Right. That's now.
Democrats are up by 9,
Hey. All right.
50-41.
I'll
If
take
they
it.
really
Wow.
have
Ooh,
a 9-point lead, I mean, it's the same poll. That's why it's so interesting.
yeah.
If they really have a 9-point lead, doesn't matter how much redistricting you do.
Yeah, well, hopefully that would be terrific. That would be a great way to nullify it. And
I said must have been a couple of months ago.
although,
I was bothered by this redistricting push, but I wasn't freaked out. We're doomed. I wasn't dooming on it.
Okay.
This is why.
yeah, well, it'll be closer than it should be.
We're not going to win
But
as
that's
many
all.
seats as we would
Yeah.
without this.
I mean,
but
there's a bad
plus 9.
right.
We're not done yet.
No, and that's great. And I mean,
The
if
guy
hopefully we
freaking
come through
destroyed
with
the White
plus
House.
12. Yeah, that's going to
something that
show
breaks
up in
through to
ads.
everybody.
Nobody seems to really like that a lot. That's pretty shocking to people, and I guess that's one of those sort of things where I guess people who were hanging back and had, I don't know, whatever, you show them pictures of that, and I mean, unless you're already dedicated MAGA, you're thinking, this is one of those things that I thought, well, if he does something this crazy, then everyone will know. Well, there it is. Ripping down the White House is probably
the response that I
among the
usually
craziest.
have when I tell somebody a story like this is,
Hmm.
this is what you voted for?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
No,
voted to
very few
demolish
people
the
say
White
this.
House? What is wrong with you?
Yes. I mean, there really are still people out there who are like,
Yeah.
no,
You
this is
voted
great. It's
to
progress.
drag 13-year-old American citizens out of the classroom?
Hmm.
That's what you voted for?
You're
You
making
who
it
say
uncomfortable
family
for
is
me.
everything? You
Right.
voted for this?
Mm-hmm.
Say it nicely, but that's basically the theme.
Covering up the Epstein files. You voted for that.
Well, I told you I had heard it referred to as the Trader Ballroom, but I prefer the common, the
everybody's
accepted
fighting
as
over
of
what to call it.
yesterday designation, the Epstein Ballroom.
There's no reason not to call it that. Although it is funny watching rounds one after the other, waves sweeping over social media. No. We're calling it the Trader Ballroom. No, don't do that. Call it the Epstein Ballroom. Yes. No, call it there's a new thing. Name it after the corporations that are paying for it. But they actually want that.
They want that.
Like a football stadium. But
Yeah.
all right. But I did see that. Yeah, somehow it sort of all of a sudden caught on as the Epstein Ballroom. And why not?
Well, duh, of
Because,
course, why not?
Yeah, everybody's still talking about that. And this is, I don't know whether it's supposed to be a distraction somehow. No one knows what's a distraction anymore.
Meanwhile, Arizona is, in fact, suing the
Yes.
House.
Right.
Or
Sure, why
planning
not?
on suing the House about
believe they
not
started.
seating Adelita Grijalva.
Right.
And where that goes and who has standing and how the courts
Yeah.
decide, I have no idea. But the pressure is ratcheting up. That's really the purpose and function of it.
Mhm.
A reminder that the reason that Arizona can do that is because the Attorney General of Arizona is a Democrat.
Yes, that's true. So don't
Because
handicap
if the
yourself.
Attorney General is a
Virginia.
Republican, that doesn't happen. That's why we talk about the Virginia Attorney General race, one of the two reasons. The other is that if the Republican wins, or even if the Democrat wins, at least in theory, they have a leg up on the next gubernatorial cycle because
They got something.
You got weird rules about your governor only being able to do one term,
Right.
and there aren't that many other statewide offices
We're running out of people.
that have visibility.
Yeah. It's unfortunate in that I don't know, like we've learned nothing, but we're just so narrow-minded in the country in our normal everyday politics. Well, okay, if the governor can't run again, then we can only choose from the other people who have run statewide and proven their electability. Although, as it turns out, usually people are like, I don't know who that is, but I'll vote for my party's person or whatever, or they weren't so bad, so I'll vote for them if they can run again as attorney general. And then they step in to run for governor and they're like, oh yeah, I remember. I don't like that guy at all. No, I don't want him to be governor, actually.
Right.
So it hardly even works. But okay.
Well, so let's talk
conventional
about
wisdom
because,
stuff. Sure.
Because State Navigate is out with their new forecast for this election in less than 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Virginia Democrats are virtually certain to win the race for governor. Abigail
All right.
Spanberger is projected to get
Virtual.
55.5% of the vote and has a 98% chance of winning, Winsome Earl Sears is projected to get 44.5 of the vote and has a 2% chance of winning, or as Wolf Blitzer likes to say, a statistical dead heat. So that's of interest. For the lieutenant governor, overwhelming favorite, 52.8 to 45.2, with a 92% chance of winning. And of course, the one that's really interesting is the Attorney General, Jay Jones, projected to get 52.2% of the vote, has an 80% chance of winning. That's been dropping. But if Spanberger has that kind of a lead, and there's no ticket splitting, then she pulls Jones over the finish line. And if there is a tremendous amount of ticket splitting, then they lose. So this one, 80-20, I still think is closer to a toss-up with Jones having a slight lead.
Okay.
In New Jersey, we'll try to get this in before the break.
Why not? Give it a shot.
Mikey Sherrill, projected to get 51.7% of the vote and has an 87% chance of winning. Jack Citarelli is projected to get 46.3 and has a 13% chance of winning. And that's because Ocean County is trending even more Republican and has a lot of votes. So Citarelli is up 36 points there. However, some of the other counties that have a lot of votes are trending Sherrill. So state's pretty 50-50 when you look at geography. Land doesn't vote. It's all about who lives where. And, that's the state of the race right now. So we should have a pretty decent election 2 weeks from now. Looking forward to it. And debates, like the Mamdani debate yesterday, really tend to not change much of anything, although they're good for stories.
Okay. Well, we love stories. They fill the time. But, all right. Well, we'll check. Now that having checked back in on those things, we'll take a 2-minute break, decide what to do next.
Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I was just telling Greg something over the break. As I told you, we were going to take 2 minutes to decide what to do next, and then we decided. So while we were talking about it, I opened up the Wikipedia page for Attorneys General of Virginia, and just kind of looking at the, from the bottom of the list up, and I just wanted to know how many of these Virginia governors do you remember? Of course, Jason Miyares is Attorney General right now, and it is said that this election will determine his ability to stand for election as an incumbent, a popular incumbent, in the next gubernatorial election in 4 years in Virginia. But the previous Virginia Attorney General, everyone remembers Virginia Governor Mark Herring, right? You don't, of course, because he did not become governor. Now, you may remember Ken Cuccinelli. He's a bad guy whose name stayed in the news, but because he...
That's in McAuliffe beat, isn't it?
Yeah. And then he sucked up to... But he ran, that's true. But but he sucked up to Trump and got himself a different job. Now, before him, Bill Mims was Attorney General, and no one, remembers him. Prior to that, finally, after his stint as governor from 2006 to 2009, Bob McDonnell did, in fact, run for governor and win, and then got convicted of, taking bribes, and then had his conviction overturned. So he was all over the news, but it's been not since Bob McDonnell has anybody actually done it successfully. The Attorney General before him, Judith Jagdman, also did not become governor. Neither did Jerry Kilgore become governor, though he ran. Randolph Beals, doesn't ring a bell. Mark Earley, I remember the name, ran for governor, wasn't governor. Richard Cullen, wasn't governor. Jim Gilmore was the last one who made it to the governor's mansion prior to Bob McDonnell, the bribe guy, back in the 90s. So the record isn't great, though, if you also look at what happened to those people. What did they do after? How did their term end as Attorney General? And I have to go and flip through to see if any of them. There's a few others prior to them who ran for governor and actually won. And not everybody who ran for governor has got an entry in this column, because it only says this column is, how did your term end? If your term ended because it ended and then you later ran for governor, it doesn't say anything. But if you resigned to run for governor, one, that's
a lot
an indication.
of them did.
Yeah, that's over and over again. Resigned to that's the play, obviously. So
right. And my point is, you're setting yourself up to run. You're not necessarily setting yourself up to win.
Right. And
but you get that, you run for Attorney General and try to make a name for yourself so that you can turn around and run for governor.
And my point is that if you take, if you're one of those people who are like, show me the data. Well, like I've got data that says you're expected to set yourself up for a run. But being an efficiency minded person, I want to know what's the data on winning, because if we have to select somebody to stand up for election in 4 years, I would like to go, if we can, with something that would give us some indication that we might win. Oh, that's a different story. And it is.
Well, you're looking at the motivation of a rational voter. I'm looking at the motivation of a candidate who wants to run. They're not the same thing.
This is what is done. I run. And so there's lots of them. It makes a lot of sense. I'm now a statewide elected official. They haven't always been elected attorneys general, but
and as soon as you do something that appears to be rational, I say to you, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
We're talking politics here.
Right. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know about
that.
And
voters.
They could
when
be
a voter's rational.
And if you were listening to Greg and you're not living in Virginia, and Miyares wins because of the worry that Republicans have, we got to prop him up because otherwise we don't have a legit shot at the governor's mansion next time, and he wins, and you say, oh my God, now there's going to be another Republican governor of Virginia. Right. No, Greg would also tell you, we're going to have an election and they're going to vote first, so don't get too excited. That's the guy who'll probably run. That's the guy where all the money will go to, but he could set it on fire and lose. So, okay. Just pointing that out. It's not a guarantee. One of the weird things about Virginia with that one term in office rule is, I don't know, it's weird. I guess because you have the one shot at it, I don't know whether that's what's killing candidates who are trying to move from the AG slot up. But the latter doesn't work all that well, except from successfully winning the governorship and then climbing into the Senate from there. But as long, one of the most genius things Democrats managed to pull off was putting two relatively young Democratic former governors in those slots, and then remembering, dislodging someone from the Senate where you can run again, that doesn't happen a lot.
Right. So I have this piece from CNBC, and just to give you an idea of CNBC's orientation, at the very top of this article is one of those breaking chyrons, breaking news. I love that it's breaking. Yes. You know what's breaking news on CNBC?
No, what?
Stocks are little changed.
Ooh, that is breaking.
Can't make that up. That's like going to rock your day, but that's what it says.
Yeah.
So that's their orientation. They're very financial orientation. Exactly what the story is on CNBC, economic orientation. Trump's approval rating on the economy takes a hit because of shutdown, inflation, CNBC survey finds. Americans' view on the economy turned more negative in the third quarter, deepening concerns about jobs, inflation, and the outlook. Trump's approval rating fell to 44, while disapproval rose to 52. A second-term trend with his economic approval running below his overall approval rating by 2 points. Approval is 42 on the economy. Increasingly negative attitudes about the president's handling of critical economic issues.
Like tearing down the White House.
Together with blame for the shutdown aimed at the president and congressional
shutdown,
Republicans, these views drag down Trump's net approval rating that minus 13 on the economy is the lowest of any CNBC survey during either of Trump's 2 terms. Remember, the only person to compare to Trump is Trump.
Yes.
The president's overall approval rating dropped from 40 to 44 from 46. And 53% of respondents blame the potential economic fallout from the shutdown on Republicans in Congress and the president, compared to 37% for Democrats, but increasingly negative attitudes about the president's handling of critical economic issues. Inflation and cost of living, 34% approve, 62% disapprove, worst numbers of the 3 CNBC surveys during the president's second term. An important finding for a president who promised to reduce prices. Thank you for reminding us, CNBC.
Yes.
So that's all pretty interesting.
That was worthwhile. Finally, at the end. Yeah, right. Oh, running on the. I just remember those.
Oh, by the way,
signs.
stocks no change. Breaking news.
Oh, good. One, that's not. There's nothing. If it's not new, if the prices haven't moved, nothing new has happened. That's not news. But okay, yeah, these guys. One of the worst things about cable news networks that I remember from their early days, I guess because they were 24/7, they needed to have something happening, even if there wasn't news, something had to be moving on the screen. And the decision to say...
It's got to be visual, too, because it's TV.
Yeah, and that event, at some point in the 80s, they were like, you know what is like just everybody needs this news. So we'll just put it there. The stock tickers...
Missing plane.
That too. But then they have to come up with other. Then they play up other stories.
That's 2 months worth of like they're never going to find it, so we can do that every day.
That's true. Missing Loch Ness Monster. Why don't they try that one?
Right, exactly.
But
speaking of visuals and speaking of trying to get it in your head with what they show, because you're absolutely right. Mm-hmm. Here is a story by Paul Krugman, which is a wonderful segue because it's a follow-up to the economic stuff, but a bridge to what we're going to talk about next.
Okay.
Paul Krugman, the U.S. economy is in worse shape than it looks. No recession so far, but the no-hiring economy is hurting workers.
Yes,
bottom line being, the AI bubble is propping up the economy for the very wealthy, but everybody else is struggling. Interestingly, he's got this story. And like I do when I put up the pundit roundup, like most people do when they write a story, they want some kind of catchy picture at the top of the story to get your interest.
Sure.
And he's got a picture that has absolutely nothing to do with the economy.
Okay.
It's a picture of Trump demolishing the White House.
Well,
and so what people need to do with this Epstein ballroom is to have that or a similar picture of the White House being demolished in every story they tell, whether it's got anything to do with the story or not. Just get the damn pictures out there because Trump says he doesn't want you showing them because security.
Yeah, sure, or whatever. Oh, I was thinking about, I'm looking at this pile of rubble and thinking about photoshopping George W. Bush on top of it with a bullhorn. We're going to get the guys who did this.
Yeah, we could do that.
That'd be interesting. I don't know if Bush would help us in that one, but
Right. When people had the No Kings, various protests, marches, events, whatever you want to call it, and they were all over, small town, big town.
Burger
we had one
King
in Newtown
suing,
here,
by the way.
Bethel, the next town over had one. And I took that little picture of Bernie in his gloves with his arms crossed, sitting in a chair, and I plopped it in every single one of the pictures somebody sent me, and I would send it back to them and said, look, Bernie was there.
Yeah, put him on top of the rubble
probably,
of the White House.
This picture of the White House being demolished is probably the only picture I've seen in the last year where I didn't have the temptation to put Bernie in.
You didn't? Well, yeah.
No reason to. But George W. Bush, that's a good idea.
Okay. Yeah, all right.
The bullhorn.
Right. Everybody remembers that. We're going to get the people who did it. They're going to hear from us.
Yeah.
I think it wasn't
They'll all
not
hear
exactly
from us.
an inspiring speech, but it was what we had at the time.
Inspiring enough given the time and day.
Yeah. Look, his
So
approval rating
Krugman
was gonna
writes,
go up.
the U.S. economy is in a weird place right now on multiple
It
fronts.
is.
One immediate problem is that policymakers are flying somewhat blind because the government shutdown has delayed the September employment report. According to the last report available, unemployment is relatively low by historical standards, but another source of weirdness is many people feel very bad about the economy. Consumer sentiment is down.
Sure.
So are we in what Phil Graham, remember him, once called a mental
alive?
recession? A mass delusion. The
I'm
economy
always
is
in a
bad.
mental recession. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe. But it's not, next thing you know, they'll start demolishing the White House itself to make room for some vanity project.
Yeah,
Oh,
damn
wait.
it.
That happened.
Phil
But
Graham
it's
is
not
83.
only about political unease. There are some objective, measurable reasons to say the U.S. economy, which appears okay by most commonly used measures, is not okay. One essential aspect is the economy strongly bifurcated. AI is booming. The rest of the economy is not.
Is it booming?
In many ways, the economy feels frozen. While there's been no mass layoffs, people can't find jobs, so they're stuck where they are. And third, while the economy is growing thanks to AI spending, it's a K-shaped expansion. People who are already affluent becoming more so, less well-off are becoming less so. Shoppers are buying cheaper varieties of food. The affluent are spending freely. There are GoFundMe for groceries, all this sort of stuff. The top 10% of the income distribution now accounts for half of all consumer spending. What's going on? Erratic policies from Trump.
Yeah.
And then presents data to make the case. But yeah, that's all going on.
Yes. It is. Okay, so lots of chaos happening. Even people who aren't losing their jobs are losing their minds because if they're trying to plan how whatever business it is that they work for, if they're trying to plan more than 10 seconds ahead, they don't know how to do it. They don't know how much it's going to cost to import materials.
Right. And so they're unwilling to do it if they can't really predict something of the near future, let alone the far future.
Right.
Do you remember Glenn Kessler?
Yes.
Fact checker for the Washington Post back in the day?
Yeah.
He's no longer with the Washington Post like many other journalists who left the place.
Is anybody still there? Yeah. Right.
Fact people check. Are still there.
True. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Glenn Kessler now has a Substack, or has, as they say in the trade, a vertical of some kind.
Yes.
And
partly true.
His is very cleverly named. This will give you an idea of what I think of Glenn Kessler. His Substack is named by Glenn Kessler.
Are we sure?
He probably worked for years to try to come up with that, but he finally did.
Yeah,
but he has a topic I'm interested in.
Maybe the machine grabbed that. That's all that I forgot to put a title, so it just took the next line.
Probably.
Okay.
Trump's Bonwit Tellerization of America. So he tells the story you brought up about Bonwit Teller. What's the big deal about Bonwit Teller? So I just want to remind people.
Yeah, and that's a long time ago, so people may not know. There's a lot of people
who said
who
the
like,
freezes weren't worth saving, just
born.
like USAID, VOA, and the truth, says Glenn Kessler. And guess what? He's got a picture of the White House being demolished. Only in this case, it's actually apropos to the article.
Yes, that's true. But even if it isn't, you should use it anyway. And it's an ugly looking shot too. That's going to disturb Trump just by itself. This looks terrible. And that's the reason he doesn't want it, not security.
Donald Trump's dismantling of parts of the White House East Wing to make way for a gargantuan $250 million ballroom, just about the same amount of money that he claims the Justice Department owes him.
Isn't that odd?
Without any forethought or architectural approvals, has been cited by critics as a metaphor for what he's doing to American democracy. To me, his second-term approach to governing has its roots in a similarly shocking display of developer hubris. His destruction 45 years ago of the Bonwit Teller limestone bas-relief sculptures of two nearly naked women to make way for Trump Tower.
How did he do that?
After Trump, 33 at the time, same
Love
age
the
as
naked
Mamdani,
women.
purchased the bankrupt retailer's 11-story building. He promised to donate the 15-foot-high Art Deco sculptures to the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
Right, why not?
He agreed to donate a 6-by-9-meter geometric pattern bronze lattice work that hung over the entrance, and one day he woke up and decided he wasn't. He ordered crews to separate the treasures from the walls with jackhammers and break them off with crowbars. They were thrown down by workers, shattering them to bits. The lattice work was removed with blowtorches and mysteriously went missing. By the time New Yorkers realized
wow.
what happened, the deed was done, and that was that. And I couldn't stop thinking about Bonwit Teller when the U.S. Agency for International Development, a lifeline for many countries in the global south. Remember, Trump is killing people with this.
Yes.
And so are you, Marco Rubio. And again, remember, Republicans are responsible for all of this, including the destruction of the White House. Republicans are responsible for it.
They could stop it.
Was dismantled earlier this year in the blink of an eye. Trump knew by the time the lawsuits wended their way, it was too late. In 1980, the New York Times put the news of Trump's betrayal on the front page under the headline, Developer Scraps Bonwit Sculptures. The story has all the earmarks of a classic Trump tale. The destruction of the Art Deco ballot. Art Deco is beautiful. It is absolutely well worth preserving. Art Deco ballots stunned some art appraisers and elicited expressions of surprise and disappointment from officials of the Met. Then the spin. John Barron, a vice president of the Trump Organization, said after the demolition that the company had decided not to preserve the sculptures because the merit of the stones wasn't great enough to justify the effort. Mr. Barron said the company had got 3 independent appraisals, and he found them to be without artistic merit and worth less than $9,000 in resale. And it would cost $32,000 to remove them carefully and would have delayed demolition work by a week and a half.
Yeah, and by the way, you could have taken them down, and the $32,000 you spent could have been the tax write-off for the donation to the Met, so it all would have been recoverable. And also, I'll just point out, John Barron knows very well that you could have taken those things down and donated them to the Met and said they were worth $32 million.
Right.
Because why not? You do that all the time.
Ashton Hawkins, vice president and secretary of the Met's Board of Trustees, was flabbergasted. Can you imagine the museum accepting them if they don't have artistic merit?
That seems like a no.
Preservation News reported that Robert Miller, an art dealer with a gallery across from Bonwit's, estimated the sculptures were worth between $200,000 and $800,000, and they could have been safely removed in little time. And finally, the Trump double down. After days of controversy, Trump stopped hiding behind his spokesperson and offered reporters an even more ridiculous figure. He said removal of the sculptures would have cost more than $500,000 in taxes, demolition delays, and other expenses. And that was higher than the reported valuation of the sculptures in the news reports by the preservation people. On top of that, Trump claimed he was motivated by his concern for the safety people of the street below. If the stone had slipped, people could have been killed. To me,
the guy who shelled the I-5.
Right. Somehow, that concern didn't apply when workers were ordered to hurl the frieze fragments down from the 11th
Isn't that
floor.
something?
Right. And so he finishes by saying, almost half a century has passed, we're still watching the same movie. And that's why New Yorkers who know him, who've known him for 50 years, hate him.
Yes. And by the way, the capper, if you don't actually know the full life cycle of the story, is that when they destroyed this building, the reason they were destroying the building was to make room for something else. So what did we trade this fabulous Art Deco building for? Trump Tower.
Right.
There you go. You've seen that monstrosity and the photos of him and his family inside sitting on gold toilets and whatnot. That was the trade-off. So, okay.
Right. So Vox has a very helpful explainer on the buzzy word that Democrats have pinned their hopes on. Can affordability be more than just a campaign pitch? Whose campaign pitch is that? Here's the one article that doesn't have a picture of the White House being demolished. They have the Zohran Mamdanized rally, which is understandable because he's making the central issue of the campaign.
Affordability.
Right. Few candidates or elected officials are willing to acknowledge what many economists say quietly. Prices tend to be sticky, and absent a major economic slowdown, costs are unlikely to fall. But when it comes to the explanation for today's affordability crisis, the party finds itself, the Democratic Party, embroiled in seemingly endless factional debates. Abundance theory, NIMBY,
what about that? That's
greed, Wall Street recklessness, all that. So one attempt to unify all these debates comes from the Economic Security Project, a progressive organization focused on direct cash support and the broader societal social safety net.
Okay.
A new analysis of affordability. Markets fall in three main ways, fall and fail.
Both.
Gatekeepers constrain supply, fragmented markets falter when the lack of customers makes services unprofitable, and manipulated signals obscure true costs. The framework covers a lot of the leading theories about what's going on, but whether or not that actually works with people from California to New York remains to be seen. So it's good that people are talking about it.
Yeah, sure, why not?
When you're running like Mamdani is, you don't have to explain any of this stuff. You just need to understand what's a buzzy word and use it. And he does, and it's working.
I guess so. I mean, I don't know. It seems like easier to understand than like, I don't really understand abundance stuff. I mean, I understand the word abundance. I don't understand, like, are you going to give me an abundance, or am I supposed to give you I'm not sure where that, I need an explainer I don't need an explainer from Vox, but from somebody. And I've had it too, and I've forgotten it already, which tells you how good it works as a buzzy word. Affordability, I have never lost sight of what that means. So, okay, I think that's a better buzzy word than abundance.
Yeah. Anyway, that's what I got today.
Okay, that's a good number of things
I don't got nothing else.
Okay, that's fine, and I guess I'll add this. Do you want to hear Trump say something dumb?
Sure.
Okay. Well, we got a minute or more for that. I would say this is one of those. This is a moment of like whole eye rolling. Like, oh my God, this has a lot wrapped up in it. It's Trump discussing the strike, the not the latest one in the Pacific Ocean, the first one in the Pacific Ocean, in between the two strikes in the Pacific Ocean on boats that he says are carrying drugs, and he's, I guess, asked to explain himself, and it's one of the more word salady things that he's had to say, and B, has two at least great examples of him trying to come up with wording to explain what happened and why he did what he did, but having such a limited vocabulary and maybe possibly, a stroke-addled brain, and he can't really string the words together. And so it comes up with his 8th grade vocabulary wording for what is going on here, and says something that he knows as soon as he said it, that's not the right word, but he then goes and says, that's actually the right word. Everybody tells me those are the right words. So, I don't know. I found this one really interesting and fun. So, all right, here he goes. Aaron Rupar is the one who captured it, as always. I think I can play it on the big screen here.
And drug usage is way down. And drug usage coming from the sea, they call it ocean drugs, a little term that they use, the ocean drugs, is very close to non-existent right now.
It's definitely non-existent.
It never existed.
Yeah, right. Ocean drugs. I think you might be on the ocean drugs, but that was pretty good. But there's much more to it.
Being brought in by people over the ocean, we call Aquaman. Aquaman drugs are just way down compared to what they used to be.
Yeah, he gives the mental signal to the fish, bring me ocean drugs. So there's more. He goes on, of course, but they do not call them ocean drugs. And of course, also interesting, drug usage is way down. Well, then stop blowing up boats. No, it's because we're blowing up boats that drug usage is way down. Right. No, there's still more though.
I wouldn't want to be in one of those boats heading away.
I would like
driving happily to destroy the lives of people, and
driving happily.
That's the end of them. So the ocean drugs and the sea drugs by sea, they call it also. That's almost down to nothing, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
So they continue to
we're
come.
We're going to call them water drugs. We like calling them water drugs. Everybody calls them water. You probably didn't know this.
H2O drugs.
I'm the only one that knows that they call them water drugs.
Within seconds. Now, it wasn't. Well, it's not ocean drugs. That's scrambled. Donald, what's the word from drugs? Drugs by sea.
See, what's in the sea? What's the substances? I forget. Air, earth, fire. No, water. It's water drugs.
It's amazing. So there's another 20 seconds left to it, but really, okay, you get the point. Drugs.
That's about as much as I could stand.
They said I could call them either one. They didn't. Nobody said anything. The Hegseth is there. Rubio is there. They say nothing. But honestly, kids, Don, Eric, Ivanka, stop it already. You got all the crypto money you could ever hope for. Let the man rest. Remove him from office. You can give the signal to the cabinet. It's time. Ocean drugs. That's what they call it. That's what they told me I could call it, unless you wanted to call it drugs by sea. Anyway, I just thought that was good filler material to get us closer to the end. And this is wrapping it up for the week. So unless you've got anything else you want to shoehorn in? How's the construction going there? You're not Bonwit Tellerizing your house.
Try not to.
Right.
So we're still waiting on some stuff that hasn't been delivered yet because, it's in the supply chain and this, that, and everything else. And I don't know where it's from. I don't know if it's local or domestic or whether it's from overseas or we're waiting for Italian glass. I don't know. I'm just waiting for the shower door.
Okay.
Can't really use a walk-in shower without a shower door. Yeah, I could put up a temporary push bar from the hardware store with a curtain, a plastic curtain, and that would work. But we have another shower, so we're using that one.
Okay.
So when is that going to arrive? Probably between 9 and 10 on any given day. I'm supposed to do a show.
Okay. seems about right.
I do know yesterday the tree guy started knocking on the door just at the end of my segment, and I had to leave.
Yeah.
Because the tree guy came to chop up trees because, he wasn't chopping. He just came to look and see. And I showed him all the trees that were too big for me to just pick up and throw in the fireplace because they're 10 feet long and, foot and a half wide.
Could you turn this into fireplace-sized pieces?
So I asked him if he could turn it into fireplace-sized stuff, and he said, yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah,
but, happened to be there right at the end of the show, so I sort of had to leave abruptly.
Yeah.
And now, in about a month, all of that should be
oh.
behind us. We should be finished with all of the projects.
Yes. Okay, good. That's good
unless
news.
something else breaks.
All right. Well, don't anybody go by and break anything. By the way, they had to cut down a bunch of historic trees at the White House to make room for the gigantic ballroom or whatever the hell they say they're building. As well, that caused a bit of a ruckus as well. Some of them have been there for quite some time, and I don't know. That changes from time to time. But yeah, also people noting, I think quite correctly, where are all the people who were outraged that statues were being moved from the public arena into private museums or museum basements, some of which had been, and even the ones that were being destroyed, they were pretty intent on letting everybody know they didn't want the public profile of these sorts of things to change, and they're entirely silent about tearing down entire wings of the White House. That strikes me as very odd, but perhaps it's just that they're hypocrites, so we should consider that as an explanation, I think. All right, well, thanks, Greg, and have a good early start to your weekend, and we'll catch up with you again on Monday, and there will be more stories between now and then, I am sure of it. Okay, well, good luck to you and to everybody working and everybody who's working and listening at the same time. It's a small pool, but it's there. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Greg reminded me on his way out the door, a brand new door, by the way, that's just been installed, I guess. I don't know. That there's another story churning out there that will have the attention of most of America because it's sports related. I just thought I'd make mention of it because he said there was an additional arrest made, but apparently a big case breaking of I don't know what exactly, but it's within the NBA, the basketball league, and it has to do with sports betting. And although this CBS headline for it, and I don't know, do we trust CBS anymore? CBS News, Barry Weiss. The headline is, the one I had seen earlier in the day was Terry Rozier of the Miami Heat, I guess. Then Greg let me know on the way out the door that also Chauncey Billups, I don't know any of these guys, but what can I tell you? Chauncey Billups, though, is he the coach? Yeah, of the Portland Trail Blazers. So those are the two headliner names here. It is very interesting. So here's Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier of NBA arrested as part of nationwide federal probes into illegal betting. And I don't know whether the betting was illegal, like underground betting, or whether it was legal betting, but it was illegal for them to have bet on what they bet on. I don't know. We'll go find out. I'm just saying it's interesting because I'm watching it here. It's up on CBS News' screen, and it's running right alongside, of course, FanDuel ads. So I find that interesting and funny, except that, there was just really never going to be any other outcome to legalizing sports betting online. You'd eventually get players and coaches betting. And if they're not allowed to bet on the legal betting networks, then they're going to still say, how come I'm missing out on all the fun and profit of sports betting? I'll have to take my bets off the books. And then, anyway, so there you have it. Billups and Rozier were arrested in separate cases related to illegal betting that the FBI is pursuing, according to Chris Bengel, who has written this up for CBS News. And I don't know. I mean, do we need to know more than this? I think so. Well, let's do it. Portland Trail Blazers coach Chauncey Billups, Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier, and former NBA player Damon Jones were arrested by the FBI on Thursday morning as part of an extensive federal grand jury investigation. You know about those guys, those grand juries, into illegal sports betting split across two cases, sources tell CBS News. Billups is one of 31 people being charged for allegedly taking part in illegal high-stakes poker games that involved sports coaches and were operated by organized crime figures. All right. So on the one hand, you say, oh, come on, high-stakes poker games among coaches, that's just guys playing poker with each other. All right, but they were organized by organized crime figures. Oh, well, you mean that kind of thing. You mean the kind where you get sandwiches and drinks and maybe ocean drugs are involved too. Who knows? Anyway, Rozier was arrested in connection with a sports betting ring involving current and former players, including some who allegedly faked injuries, sources tell CBS. That sounds more like trying to rig the online betting markets than playing poker. Like, poker isn't going to do anything to affect the outcome of the game, except that, one, you are possibly up all night drinking, boozing, possibly using illegal ocean drugs or drugs by sea, that could affect your job performance and therefore, I don't know. It's hard to see how it carries over into the work arena, except also, I guess I would say, well, let me see. If your high stakes poker game is run by organized crime figures, and let's say you run up a tremendous debt, as can happen in high-stakes poker games. And let's say that they spot you the money so that you can save face with your fellow players, but then you end up in a huge amount of debt to organized crime. Can they leverage that into a way to also perhaps rig betting with online? Yeah, they probably could. And that's the reason they try not to allow that to happen. So anyway, there you go. Rozier is among 6 people charged in the latter case per ABC News. So thankfully, CBS News is trustworthy because they cite a news source not run by Barry Weiss. Although I don't think she cares at all about these stories, so she's probably not changing it. FBI Director Kash Patel and other federal officials are expected to announce the arrests ranging from illegal sports betting to poker game schemes at 10 a.m. Eastern Time in New York. That's now. So someone can tell me whether the Twitter-based reporter legions are sitting there making jokes about why Kash Patel is late. All right, so there you go. I don't know. That's an interesting bit. Keep your eye on everything. You never know which crazy story has to do with politics and which ones don't until it's too late. So on the first story I told you in the beginning, the expansion of the military strikes into the Pacific Ocean. I have a New York Times article to offer you on that one. By the way, I guess just since we now have a little bit more time, I can play you the rest. There's another 20 seconds of Trump word salad. I don't know if there's anything quite as funny in it as, I don't know, filler after as Trump rambles, realizing I can't believe I just called them ocean drugs or drugs by sea. But what else do I have to say for myself? Let's find out.
And by land at a little bit less because they see something is going to happen. They don't like it. They see something, and they're right. Something very serious is going to happen. The equivalent of what's happening by sea. And we're going to Congress just to tell them what we're doing, just to keep them informed. But we have to do it for national security. We have to do it to save lives.
Okay, so that's how they're saving lives, of course, by killing people. I know what he's saying. We have to do it to save lives. We're going to kill people that I say are drug runners because if we don't, then they're going to get their drugs to the United States, the ocean drugs, and it's going to kill the ocean drug people or drug by sea people, as they sometimes call themselves. But this is his version of a trolley problem, which is interesting because, of course, he's only alive because the doctors at Walter Reed failed the trolley problem many years ago. Think about how many lives they could have saved by saying, what can I tell you, Mr. President? You're just going to have to go on a ventilator and, take your chances with your lungs cracking like glass and dying of COVID. But instead, they decided to save his life so that he could go on to disassemble USAID, kill millions of children around the world, and also blow up every boat south of Miami. And just claim that they were full of ocean drugs. Ocean drugs, by the way, are the drugs that fall out of boats that are blown up on their way to wherever they're going while they're smuggling. And then they age beautifully in the ocean, and they, Donald Trump Jr. tells me, become that much more potent when they are salvaged from the sea. Anyway, he didn't tell me that, but, it was believable enough. Here's the real news, though. Let me grab the latest that I had socked away in Instapaper here. Still a mad review for Instapaper on the whole. No worse than Pocket, but Pocket was a mad review too, by the way. Anyway, U.S. strikes second boat in Pacific as anti-drug operation expands. And I should note for the record that there are plenty of people on social media critiquing the headlines as usual. It assumes an awful lot. I.e., it assumes that the Trump administration is telling you the truth about any of this. Is it an anti-drug operation if there's no drugs on any of the boats? Is it an anti-drug operation if there's only drugs on some of the boats? We don't know. This is what they're calling it so that people will leave them alone about it. But given that it's been going on for quite some time now, and still they don't even feel compelled to come up with fake evidence that they're correct, is a little troubling. The Trump administration, our subheader reads, announced a second strike outside the Caribbean in a campaign against what U.S. officials say are boats carrying drugs bound for the United States. Why they won't prove it, I don't know. Your usual suspects on the byline, Eric Schmidt, Charlie Savage, who I think has been on all of them, and Chris Cameron. A little bit of rotation in the bylines there. I don't know. Maybe they have the Pacific Ocean beat, but Charlie Savage is on the beat of boats blown up anywhere for national security reasons. For the second time in 2 days, the Trump administration launched deadly attacks on a vessel suspected of smuggling drugs in the eastern Pacific, expanding its campaign beyond the Caribbean Sea. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said late Wednesday between drinks. The strikes this week were the 8th and 9th known boat attacks that U.S. Special Operations Forces have conducted since the operation began in early September. Again, it's been a long time. It's coming on 2 months here. And brought the officially acknowledged death toll to 37. Mr. Hegseth did not provide geographic details beyond saying that the attacks had taken place in the eastern Pacific in international waters. All of the previous 7 attacks took place in the Caribbean. A U.S. official speaking on condition of anonymity to discuss the sensitive matter, ocean drugs, said the first strike in the eastern Pacific was off the coast of Colombia, which may or may not be true, but if it is true, that'll give Americans, like connective material. Colombia cocaine. Yeah, there you go. Ocean drugs. I believe that. Sure. Any boat leaving Colombia could only have cocaine on it. There'd be nothing else. That strike late Tuesday killed 2 people on the boat, Mr. Hegseth said in a post on X, that is to say X, the social media platform. He was not taking, as far as I know, ecstasy when he posted it. But that's what Mr. Hegseth said in a post on X that included video footage of the attack. That's the proof that you're supposed. This is very interesting too. That video of the boat exploding, just standing in for what's actually on the boat. I don't know. It wouldn't have exploded if it wasn't full of ocean drugs, or we wouldn't have made it explode anyway. All right. He said the vessel was, quote, once again, known by our intelligence, unquote, to be involved in drug smuggling and was carrying narcotics. The defense secretary announced another on Wednesday evening, which he said was carried out that day and killed 3 people. On Wednesday, speaking to reporters at the White House, President Trump bragged about the expanded action and suggested future strikes could go beyond targets at sea. Today they had one in the Pacific, and the way I look at it, every time I look, because it is violent and it's amazing, the weaponry, they have these boats that go 45 to 50 miles an hour on the water. And when you look at the accuracy and the power, look, we have the greatest military in the world, he said. And then he put word salad dressing all over it. I mean, it's not a coherent sentence. It's got a couple of thoughts. He calls it the weave. But there you go. That's what he's saying. That's the best they can do with the New York Times for getting a quote from the President of the United States that explains the situation. It's got a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it's all mashed up, and it doesn't hang together. And we don't know how to turn it into something sensible anymore. So here it is. Mr. Trump, two paragraphs begin with Mr. Trump. So they told me I could start this one with Mr. Trump, and they were right. Mr. Trump falsely asserted that each such destroyed boat saves 25,000 American lives. It's more than just falsely claiming it. It's baselessly claiming it. But when they say baselessly, people say, why don't you say he's lying? So they say falsely. You could also say he's lying, but that not quite. It doesn't really fit squarely in the area of lie, though. They're right about that. It's just a number that he made up. The concept is perhaps understandable and believable. Trolley problem. But no reason to believe that each boat saves 25,000 American lives. But somebody probably gave him that estimate, and it was baseless and stupid to make. But it's stuck in his mind, so now he's making it as though it were really true. How could that possibly be the case? It probably, each one of these boats carries a slightly different amount of drugs, different kinds of drugs, maybe no drugs at all, of course. Yeah. Anyway, he's just sticking with that. In reality, about 100,000 Americans die each year from drug overdoses, but most of those deaths are caused by fentanyl, which they point out comes from labs in Mexico. South America produces cocaine, which, surely impacts, takes lives from time to time. But again, I guess that's the basis of pointing out that he can't possibly be even in the ballpark, right? It doesn't make any sense. If each one of these boats, I'm sure that they love the figure, but how many boats have they said they done? 9 now. So 25,000 times 9, they'll no doubt be saying, I've saved 225,000 American lives. That's the actual math for this false figure. But even so, Trump is saying, I've saved millions of lives. And he's very far from millions, even if he was right about the 25,000, which he's not. If 100,000 people die each year in America, then we were done at 4 boats, right? We've prevented the 100,000 deaths, and somehow now we're going to prevent 1,500% of deaths. We're cutting the deaths by 1,500%. He's math challenged, but he's everything challenged. The second paragraph that begins with Mr. Trump goes like this. Mr. Trump then suggested that he would soon order strikes against land targets, asserting that his administration's strikes against boats had driven drug smuggling onto land routes. By the way, Space Force is also going to get the space drugs. He added that his administration would, quote, probably go back to Congress and explain exactly what we're doing before launching those strikes, but insisted that he did not need their permission to act. We will hit them very hard when they come in by land, Mr. Trump said. Of those his administration accuses of drug smuggling, they haven't experienced that yet, but now we are totally prepared to do that. The operation began on September 2nd when the military, on President Trump's orders, in case you're wondering, ICC, began attacking boats believed, by him anyway, to be smuggling drugs as if those aboard were enemy combatants in a war rather than criminal suspects. Initially, the focus was on Venezuela. American officials are also weighing whether to intensify an effort to remove that nation's president, Nicolas Maduro, who was indicted on drug trafficking charges in the United States in 2020, and whom the Trump team calls a cartel leader. But in the interim, the boat attacks have increasingly extended to Colombia, which is a far greater source of narcotics smuggled to the United States than Venezuela. So at least there's that. President Gustavo Petro of Colombia has said that several strikes killed Colombians and again accused the United States of murder after the strikes announced on Wednesday. Mr. Trump said he was cutting off foreign aid to Colombia amid the dispute. The administration has also said that intelligence backs its accusations of the passengers' identities and what they were doing, but has not offered evidence. A broad range of outside experts and laws governing the use of armed forces said the campaign is illegal because the military is not permitted to deliberately target civilians, even criminal suspects, who are not directly participating in hostilities. The White House has said the strikes are legal as a matter of self-defense because Mr. Trump has, quote, determined, unquote. I guess that's the legal term of art, that what they think is the magic word that makes it possible. Determined that the country is in a formal armed conflict with drug cartels that his team has deemed terrorists. It has not been publicly offered publicly offered, holy mackerel, a legal theory. I feel like I'm taking ocean crazy pills. It has not publicly offered a legal theory that explains how to bridge the gap between trafficking an illicit product and responding with organized armed attacks. Much of the world's supply of cocaine is produced by 3 countries in South America, especially Colombia, which has coastlines on both the Caribbean Sea and the Pacific Ocean. The Trump administration has said all of its attacks were in international waters. Maybe. It also described the people aboard each vessel as members of groups designated as terrorist organizations, though it won't say which ones. The administration itself bestowed that designation upon numerous Latin American drug cartels and criminal gangs in the months leading up to the campaign. The legitimacy of that move is contested because drug cartels are motivated by the pursuit of illicit profits, while terrorists, by definition, are motivated by religious or ideological goals. In any case, the law allowing the executive branch to designate foreign groups as terrorists permits tactics like freezing assets, but it does not convey legal authority to kill their members. U.S. officials on Wednesday did not immediately identify any specific group as the target of the latest strikes. The majority of the cocaine smuggled into the United States moves through the Pacific, not the Caribbean, U.S. data shows, but the Trump administration has mostly focused its rhetoric on Venezuela, which only has a coast on the Caribbean. Mr. Trump described initial boat strikes as having killed Venezuelans and members of a Venezuelan gang, but the strikes are causing larger turmoil within the region. Mr. Petro of Colombia has said 2 strikes, one on September 15th and one on October 3rd, killed Colombians and accused the United States of murder. Relatives of a 26-year-old from Trinidad and Tobago, I'm getting that pronunciation correct now, said he and a neighbor had been killed in an October 14th attack. Citizens of Colombia and yet another country, Ecuador, survived an October 16th strike, on a semi-submersible vessel. I'd love to know more about that, which Mr. Trump later said had killed 2 people. The U.S. Navy rescued 2 survivors, and the administration repatriated them, with Mr. Trump saying both would be detained and prosecuted. However, prosecutors in Ecuador declined to charge that man and instead released him on the grounds that there was no accusation he had committed a crime inside Ecuadorian territory. Who are we striking? Representative Jason Crow, a Colorado Democrat on the House Armed Services and Intelligence Committees, both, asked on Wednesday at a security conference, if these are narco-terrorists, as Secretary Hegseth reports, then why did we just repatriate 2 of them back to their country of origin if they're such bad guys? The other survivor has been hospitalized in Colombia with brain trauma and is breathing on a ventilator. Armando Benedetti, Colombia's Minister of the Interior, said in a social media post on Saturday night, when he returns to consciousness, Mr. Benedetti said he will be, quote, processed by the justice system for drug trafficking. So Colombia thinks they will do that. Anyway, on a 7th strike on October 17th, the military killed 3 men the Trump administration accused of smuggling drugs for a Marxist insurgent group in Colombia known as the National Liberation Army, or ELN, which the State Department designated as terrorists in 1997. So we've definitely mentioned that before. That's the end of the article. By the way, it reminds me that, of course, we spent Tuesday with a pre-recorded episode talking about how, weirdly, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago came to praise the strikes prior to finding out that Trinidadians had been killed, but that she hasn't changed her tune, I don't think, since finding out the Trinidadians were killed, because she said she has no sympathy for cartel drug runners, if that is indeed who they are. But as I probed it a little further, it turns out that the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago is a little MAGA-y, or has gone a little MAGA-y. It's very weird because her election platform is very, well, other than that, was very normal and was in fact what you might even call somewhat progressive in its orientation. But for whatever reason, she started to sort of MAGA out, and it could be cover, like please don't attack us cover, or leave us alone, we're on your side, we don't want any trouble. But also it could be, weirdly, other leaders of other countries are, in fact, some of them are just genuinely sort of MAGA in their mindset on their own, because there is this sort of international rightward lurch. But as we were pointing out, I'm not certain how much of it is really organic, given, like, for instance, finding out that Cambridge Analytica, for whatever reason, just found itself mixed up in the Trinidadian elections that brought her to national attention for the first time and launched her into the prime ministership back in 2010. So there's that. And then I was reminded as I was reading all this stuff on Tuesday, but I never really found the time or opportunity to bring it up. I just want to consider that alongside the very bizarre episodes, I guess still ongoing, in South Korea. The president of South Korea that they eventually ousted was himself exhibiting signs of being, an older person who became like basically YouTube red pill brain poisoned and started spewing a lot of the same nonsense that should have almost no relevance to South Korean domestic politics, but nonetheless were occupying huge portions of his time. He was just sold on the idea that there were international conspiracies against Korea, the United States, society in general, that he had come to learn were menaces by watching, I guess, by doom scrolling YouTube and TikTok. And it was super weird and didn't make any sense. And I guess the South Koreans eventually said, we've had enough of that. Let's get rid of the guy. But they got rid of him for their own domestic reasons. But as it turns out, he was spending the time sitting in a bunker watching YouTube and television and screaming. And I don't know how much that has to do with how we get the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago over to that. But I'm not sure how old she is. But I'm beginning to wonder whether there must be more. And I'm just sort of predicting that in the future we'll start hearing more about other brain-poisoned lunatics occupying positions of power in other countries that we're not paying attention to, and we may be forced to pay attention to in the years to come. Or I guess I would say the weeks and months to come, because I think it blows up fairly quickly. All right, just sort of putting that out there as food for thought. What else is socked away in Instapaper? Let's see. Another Aaron Rupar clip. What is this one? Oh, yes, right. This is the one that I wanted to play yesterday, and I neglected to do so and then ran out of time. But let's see. Can I find the email to myself about it? It should be. Yeah. So what was the subject? I can't even. All right. When I bring it up, I'll remember. So shifting gears. I know we're grinding to a real weird halt here, but okay. Yes, right. The White House demolition. Oh no, I'm sorry. The other $230 to $250 million boondoggle. It was the attempt by Trump to use the administrative, administrative complaint, administrative relief channels to funnel himself $230 million out of the Treasury, right? Claiming that he had been wrongly prosecuted and wrongly investigated by prior administrations And so the institutions that launched those probes and conducted those probes, the Justice Department and others, owe him restitution. He wants reparations, by the way, in case you're looking for a word that will resonate. But of course, now we're running into the next break. So when we come back, I have for you the reaction of one of the wizened heads of Capitol Hill, John Fetterman. Oh, boy. You probably have seen it for yourself already. His reaction to the story that Trump is attempting to just, pry $230 million out of the Treasury and give it to himself. But I'll give it to charity. So you'll want to know what John Fetterman thinks of that. And then you'll want to be rid of John Fetterman for whatever reason. I don't know who's guiding him these days. It may just be that, he's just never really going to come back from that stroke. Sad story as it is. And then, we got another segment to launch into still more and try and, if it's possible to predict what's coming in the next couple of days, we'll give it a shot. Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Where would you have gone? Honestly, probably nowhere. So we say welcome back, but that's just me coming back, letting you know I'm here. Instead of a fanfare for me, I just say, hey, dun, 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 I'm back. So what was I going to do? Oh, yes, right. John Fetterman. Still not on top of things. Generally acknowledged, I think, very widely. As we pointed out, even the experts were saying you don't need to talk to us to know that there's something hugely wrong with the idea that Trump can demand reparations from the federal government for being rightly accused and investigated for these things. He, of course, thinks it's wrong, but that by itself doesn't mean anything. And then, of course, manipulating the process because you're on both sides of it and simply using a process to dispense millions of dollars out of the Treasury to yourself, you can't stand by and let that happen, even though I do think there's a pretty good chance he'll screw up the paperwork and ruin the easier method of making an administrative claim and end up having to sue. But anyway, John Fetterman, who's supposed to be, watching the bottom line for all of us, and basically ordinarily you'd think he'd be the kind of guy, if he thought $230 million was being wasted, he would say, yeah, we got to do something about that. Why, I've actually got a real conservative streak in me, and I got to appeal to the people, the voters in Pennsylvania, and they don't want $230 million being wasted. But as it turns out, oddly, if Donald Trump is wasting it by stealing it, that's a good thing. So he can't quite bring himself to say, no, it's good, because that will damage him with Democratic voters in Pennsylvania. So what does he come up with? He is being interviewed here on CNN. Let's just listen and sigh heavily, shall we?
You even represent Eagles fans, I take it as well. One final question, Senator Fetterman. The president yesterday seemed to acknowledge that he's trying to get a $230 million payout from the government in response to a couple of the investigations into him. That would be taxpayer money. How do you feel about the president pushing for that?
I hope that's not true.
Me too.
For that kinds of money, that's small ball, and I think we have much bigger problems in worrying about those things. I hope it's not true, and of course, the $230 million should go to paying people's health insurance or other things. That's not a priority nice, I would ever support for those kinds of payments.
Senator John Fetterman, a Democrat from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and a Steelers fan. We do appreciate your time.
Really? Okay, well, Well, I'm glad I played it because the headline and the grab from it is much worse, I guess, really, than. But it's interesting. I think there you might be able to blame that one on. Yeah, he's not really going to get things back from the stroke. Small ball, we have much bigger problems than worrying about those things. No, it's the biggest problem. One of the biggest problems we've got. It's not small, $230 million. I don't know where you came up with that, but that just might be, I just chose the wrong word. My brain isn't right. It just isn't. Other things to worry about? No, that's central to everything. But then, the rest of it is, well, I don't like it. I don't want it to be happening. I hope it's not happening. We should be spending that money on something else. That's all like normal. And even Republicans really honestly should be saying that. I don't know what it is. I don't know exactly how serious this misstatement was, but I'm glad we played it because, well, it's not going to make much difference what I think of John Fetterman, quite honestly. But I was feeling more angry and alienated about him yesterday when I saw the takeaway quote, and then when I played the rest of it, like, all right, I see. I mean, he might even have had his heart in the right place at the beginning of that statement and just couldn't get it out. But, then maybe he shouldn't be in the Senate. It's for articulate people, quite honestly. The job requires that. All right. So now we've added that to the roundup. And I'm glad we did. Like I said, there's a slightly different takeaway from actually hearing his words, which is why you're supposed to play these things. And also, I don't blame Aaron Rupar for this or anything, but I mean, it's one of the problems with clip politics, to be honest. Context, it does matter. Anyway, so back on the ballroom beat, I mean, this should be fairly obvious, but once again, a couple of good pieces that I think fit into our continuing coverage and commentary on it, and it's wise to sample from others and round out our feelings about it and see who's making good points. In The Guardian, Lauren Aratani and Robert Mackey chime in with this piece about the demolition of the East Wing. And I guess we should point out, I think we made mention of it yesterday, that there was Trump's first promise, and really, honestly, it's an observable lie, and I think we can probably get around to calling it as much at some point, that he said it's not going to change the rest of the building. The new ballroom won't even be touching the building. We're going to preserve the building. Nothing will happen. And then like, well, we need to tear down a little bit of it. And now basically they've just given up, and they're like, we're going to tear down the whole East Wing. The whole thing's gone. And I guess I could imagine a situation, if you really examine things, well, are we totally comfortable objectively saying that Trump lied about the plans? We don't know for sure whether or not he knew all along that they were going to demolish the East Wing. I could see it being a thing where they're like, well, we thought we could get away with preserving most of it, but then it turns out as we began work, we discovered now, it would make much more sense construction-wise to just get rid of the East Wing. And now, of course, the White House spokespeople are saying, well, it just didn't make sense to try to connect the ballroom with the East Wing, because the East Wing was, like, let's say we found it was structurally unsound if we were going to be attaching this other building. And we really thought we could make it work, but as it turns out, it really can't. And so what we're going to do is we're going to build the ballroom as planned. And instead of attaching it to the existing East Wing and East Wing corridor, we're just going to rebuild the East Wing and East Wing corridor after the fact, so that the integration doesn't cause additional problems. But of course, then the integration of the East Wing corridor into the existing White House will cause problems. So, anyway, but it could be that they really did think we can do this with minimal disruption, and then found out in the course of the work that they could not. And, then in a situation like that, would you really say, well, you're lying? Like a 5-year-old would say, you said this, but you did that. That's a lie. So I could actually see it maybe not being a lie, but it's awfully dumb and dumb looking And it reveals the greater problem of Trump doing this basically with no plan. Other reporters are pointing out, and I think this one, I think the reason we picked this article is it gets to the gist of this. The headline is, White House East Wing will be torn down, quote, within days, even as no plans filed for Trump's new ballroom. Essentially saying there may not be, we saw an architectural rendering of what they thought the completed building would look like. We've seen a rendering of what the interior is slated to look like. By the way, the picture they shared for the interior, one of the things that struck me was that they had the place all filled up with banquet tables, and there was no dance floor, which for a ballroom feels like a major shortcoming, but presumably you could just not set up a certain number of those tables in the middle, and instead of seating 600, 700, 800, 900 guests, you'd seat 300 and have a ball, even though nobody does that. They just don't do that anymore. But you could set it up that way, maybe. But they also, the rendering of the interior had maybe a podium or something set up for the president to speak, at which they had what looked like, because it was very small and distant in the picture, an American flag and maybe the presidential seal flag, but they had them reversed and in the proper position. They should have, the American flag needed to be in the stage right position, and it wasn't, and that just goes to show that these guys don't know anything about anything. But anyway, architectural renderings are, of course, not the same thing as actual building plans or blueprints or anything of the sort, and they basically went into this with no plan at all. And the design of the building could still change. Certainly the design of the footprint has changed, and the plans for how to deal with it have changed. And you'd think that there would be careful planning when you're talking about the freaking White House, that you would, take care to do that. I think I saw somebody, and maybe I reposted their thing on Blue Sky yesterday, with a person claiming to be a construction engineer of some kind. Here we are. Or working with them. What was it? It's Pusheen the Millennial saying, I work in an MEP engineering firm. And I don't really know what that is, but let's look it up, because I want to know what MEP means. It is mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineering. So, be involved in construction of this sort. And there's going to be a lot of plumbing in the new East Wing, and the toilet cams to go with it. I work in an MEP engineering firm that does HVAC, or I say HVAC, although a lot of people who are actually in the business say HVAC for whatever reason. Plumbing and electrical systems plans for retail and residential, etc. That's their job. And she says, we spend more time drawing and revising plans for a beeping Ross Dress for Less than they did for the White House, which seems like it actually might be the case, and seems untenable, don't you think? The White House should have fairly rigid planning process and fairly solid plans before they start ripping things apart. But they appear not to. And here's how The Guardian puts it. Trump administration officials confirmed to various outlets on Wednesday that the White House's East Wing will be demolished within days. A revelation, given the administration has not submitted plans for the new ballroom to the federal agency that oversees construction for federal buildings. In discussions with reporters in the Oval Office, Donald Trump was asked by Jeff Mason of Reuters, which I guess they still allow into the White House these days, to respond to the widespread surprise that the entire East Wing was being torn down. Trump said the wing he described as a separate building, quote, was never thought of as being much. It was a very small building. Rather than allowing that to hurt there's more from him. Rather than allowing that to hurt a very expensive, beautiful building, he continued, in order to do it properly, we had to take down the existing structure, which is probably true in the end, and but probably also would have been obvious to anyone actually planning the thing, and they may even have known for a long time that was the case. He just thought it would shock people, so they weren't going to mention it. Then, pointing at a model of the new ballroom on a table in front of him and a new structure leading to the ballroom in the location where the East Wing used to be, Trump added, "The way it was shown, it looked like we were touching the White House. We don't touch the White House." Well, the East Wing was considered part of the White House, and now they don't touch it because they've ripped down that part. That's no Pinocchios, technically true. That's a bridge, a glass bridge going from the White House to the ballroom, Trump said of the new structure that will replace the East Wing. Trump said the result is, quote, "going to be probably the finest ballroom ever built," and that the ballroom is being paid for 100% by me and some friends of mine. And no, that's not the case. And of course, it discounts all of the Treasury revenues foregone by the tax-deductible donations, of course. Going to be the finest ballroom ever built, which at this point in history is like saying, well, it's going to be the finest horse and carriage ever built. You don't need that. No one wants that. People don't hold balls. Trump probably holds balls and dances, which he really doesn't. And the ballroom is just an old term for a event venue in his mind, right? That's what they call it. There's the ballroom at Mar-a-Lago. They may have had balls in it back in the day when they actually built the thing, but the time has come and gone for those things. He really means large, events and dinners and weddings and things. Which, a wedding will have a dance floor. At least it's a kind of a ball, I guess. Anyway, it's going to be the finest ballroom ever built 100 years after everybody realized they don't really want ballrooms anymore. The New York Times, citing a senior administration official who's probably lying, reported that the ballroom plans will mean the demolition of the entire East Wing. Oh, he might be telling the truth about that. The official also said the demolition should be finished by this weekend. And by the way, the senior administration official was your mom, in case you were wondering. Two Trump officials told NBC News similar information, saying the entire East Wing of the White House will be demolished within days. On Tuesday, the White House told Reuters it intended to send plans to the National Capital Planning Commission. Oh, and we intended to, but then we didn't. Because we didn't intend to. That, of course, is the agency that typically approves and monitors construction on federal buildings, at least in the national capital, anyway. Demolition began earlier this week with reporters taking video of a backhoe ripping out chunks of the White House's exterior. Plans for Trump's 90,000 square foot ballroom were made public in the late summer, with Trump saying he would personally fund the $200 million construction. Just another way to spend my money for this construction, he said at the time. But you know how it is with Trump spending his money. Do you think he's going to spend his money? No, he's not going to spend his money. He's going to take other people's money to do it, including yours. White House officials insist demolition is allowed within the commission's approval. Or I'm sorry, within is actually the opposite of the word without, but I've read you the wrong word. And that's interesting, right? Their interpretation essentially is, well, the commission's approval is needed for building a new building. It doesn't say anywhere that we have to get their permission for wrecking an old building. I don't know even if that's true, but if it is true, they clearly meant that, any changes to construction were to come under their purview. Anyway, they insist that they're allowed to demolish this without the commission's approval. Will Scharf, and are they? No, they're not. But does it matter if the people on the commission can be either influenced, strong-armed, or you can just insist that as a matter of loyalty to Mr. Trump, you will just now approve this thing? Even though it's insane, they'd never approve such a thing for anybody else. Will Scharf, the Trump-appointed head of the commission, who is also a White House staff secretary, just by coincidence, said in September there was a difference between demolition and rebuilding work, and only the commission can approve new construction. And maybe that's all they can approve. Everybody else can. You can demolish anything. You want to dynamite Congress? Go for it. We got nothing to say about that, is his claim. In a statement to The Guardian, a White House official said the National Capital Planning Commission does not require permits for demolition, only for vertical construction.
So if you construct things horizontally, I guess everything is okay. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Permits will be submitted to the NPC at the appropriate time. Usually, by the way, for you and me and anybody else trying to build something, or even Trump as a private developer, that time is before you do the work. Can you do work? Not if you don't have a permit. So when do you have to submit plans? During the permitting process, before you do this stuff. Did they do that? Nope, they did the opposite. In a letter sent to the White House on Tuesday, the National Trust for Historic Preservation, different organization, a leading historic preservation nonprofit created by Congress, a letter sent to the White House told the White House that demolition plans were, quote, legally required to go through public review and urged Trump to pause demolition, which of course he's not going to do. We are deeply concerned that the massing height of the proposed new construction will overwhelm the White House itself. It is, of course, the White House itself, 55,000 square feet. So 90,000 square feet is going to, be pretty dumb looking. And it may also permanently disrupt carefully balanced classical design of the White House with its two smaller and lower east and west wings, the group said in a letter. It's going to look ridiculous, is what they're saying. During Trump's first term, the White House went through the commission to install a new fence, much smaller project than the construction of a new ballroom. Amid the backlash over the demolition, Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, and her mom told Fox News on Tuesday that, quote, there's a lot of fake outrage out there right now. While many presidents have dreamt about this, none have. It is actually President Trump who is actually doing something about it. Actually. He is the builder-in-chief. In large part, he was reelected to this people's house because he is good at building things, Leavitt said, noting that many presidents had made changes to the White House, through a process, but F that. The point is, changes were made. Critics have pointed out that Trump over the summer said new construction would not affect the existing structure. It won't interfere with the current building. It'll be near it, but not touching it, and it pays total respect to the existing building, which I'm the biggest fan of, Trump said. On Tuesday night, the late-night host Stephen Colbert pulled up pictures of the White House exterior with gashes from demolition and said, so that was a lie. And I guess he's allowed to do so. All right. Well, there you go. So we're, I guess, now sort of up to speed on the dumbness of that situation. Let me backtrack and shift gears and give you another take on what's going on over in the U.S. Attorney's Office, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, where Lindsey Halligan is, quote-unquote, at work. Whether or not she should be is another question. But Liz Dye, at public notice, chiming in with a good roundup of where they stand and how dumb she's looking these days. Lindsey Halligan's humiliation continues apace is the title of this piece from just yesterday. Here's what we got. Monday was a rough one for Lindsey Halligan, another one, who proved herself bad at media and law. First, she discovered, too late, that you have to tell reporters beforehand if you want the conversation to be off the record. That was a fun episode to watch. There'll be more description of it here. Let's dive into it. From Halligan's text exchange with Anna Bauer of Lawfare, who, for the record, is a fantastic journalist. You have to say so because Lindsey Halligan spends her text messages saying you're not a journalist for some strange reason. So anyway, here are the screenshots, I think, provided by Anna Bauer of this conversation. And it begins at the point where Halligan says to Bauer, just offhandedly, by the way, everything I ever sent you is off record. You're not a journalist. So it's weird saying that, but just letting you know. And, well, she very much is a journalist, of course. And as we frequently say on the show, that is not how this works. But we say so very calmly. But, yeah, you don't say blah, 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 blah. I spilled the beans on something. Oh, they go to, I just realized. You can't tell journalists that. I have to make that off the record so that she doesn't attribute it to me. or doesn't use it at all. By the way, that was off the record. That is famously not the way this works. And so she says so. I'm sorry, but that's not how this works. You don't get to say that in retrospect. And this is the most telling thing, I think, really, about Lindsey Halligan and who she is and where she's coming from, what kind of person she is. This response right here. It's only a couple of words. In fact, it's 5 words. I'm sorry, but that's not how this works. You don't get to say that in retrospect. Yes, I do. Period. Off record. Period. Like, you don't get to say that's not, that's not how it works. Yes, I do. Free pizza. Like, no, not free pizza. You actually have to pay $9.99 or I won't give you this pizza. That's not true. Free pizza. Well, the most polite response she could make, Bauer says, I am really sorry. I would have been happy to speak with you on an off-the-record basis if you had asked. But you didn't ask, and I still haven't agreed to speak on that basis. So this isn't off the record either. Do you have, is what that means. Do you have any further comment for the story? And the answer is, it's obvious. The whole convo is off the record. There's disappearing messages, and it's on Signal. What is your story? You never even told me about a story. So that's problematic on about 5 different fronts as well. Then, back to Liz Dye's telling of it. From Halligan's text exchange, of course, with Anna Bauer. You've heard the exchange. Then, after sniping at a reporter for documenting her conversation, Halligan went back to prosecuting a former government official for lying about conversations with reporters. Maybe she's just pissed because Jim Comey knows how to speak on background. But Halligan, who never prosecuted a case in her life before Trump made her U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, was just getting started. Next up, the section entitled Indictment Mad Libs. As we detailed last week, Halligan was appointed U.S. Attorney in the EDVA, one of the busiest dockets in the world, for the express purpose of indicting Trump's enemies, New York Attorney General Letitia James and former FBI Director James Comey. And then, of course, reproducing the infamous accidental public posting of a direct message from Donald Trump to Pam Bondi, in which he says, I've reviewed the statements, and they say, you're not doing anything, hurry up, indict these guys, get to it, blah, blah, blah. Having secured those indictments, she, Halligan, now finds herself attempting to prosecute 2 high-profile cases on the Rocket Docket. I told you that was called the Rocket Docket, with a compressed briefing schedule and a culture that prides itself on moving cases through faster than any federal district in the country. It's not going well. On Monday, Comey's team filed 2 aggressive motions to dismiss, one alleging selective and vindictive prosecution, and one alleging that Halligan was unlawfully appointed. Both contained revelations that could be fatal to the case. Attached to the selective and vindictive motion was a 59-page spreadsheet cataloging all the nasty things Trump had said about Comey since 2017, offered as evidence that his prosecution is the result of animus rather than Comey's alleged, quote, crimes. But that's no revelation to anyone who's logged onto social media in the past 8 years. The revelation is that person 3 in the indictment is Comey's lawyer and personal friend, Daniel Richman, rather than former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. The charging language was ambiguous, likely on purpose, and could support 2 different theories of the case. And here a screen grab from the indictment. And I think we made mention of this fact that we weren't sure who they were even talking about in the indictment. First, count 1 of the indictment says, on or about September 30th, in the Eastern District of Virginia, the defendant Comey did willfully and knowingly make materially false, fictitious and fraudulent statements, etc. I should actually skip over this because it's almost time to go. Rather than rereading the indictment, I'll add this. Many people assume that person 3, that is the person he asked to mislead, supposedly asked to mislead the press, was McCabe, and to leak to the press, who was investigated back in 2019 for speaking to reporters, off the record, by the way, and claimed that Comey either authorized or blessed this media briefing post facto. McCabe was never charged, likely because the grand jury stiff-armed the government and refused to return an indictment on him, and he recently told CNN he hadn't spoken to prosecutors about this case. The suggestion that person 3 was Richman, a professor at Columbia Law School, that then suggested, who spoke to the New York Times about memos Comey drafted in 2017 documenting Trump's efforts to get him to kill the Russia investigation. According to ABC, Richman was subpoenaed by prosecutors in the EDVA in September and repeated his earlier public statements that Comey had not told him to speak to the press. I am way late here. It's time to get the hell out of here and allow justice to take over. But Comey's motion confirms that person 3 is Richman, something the government only revealed to the defense 2 weeks after the case was filed. But that makes zero sense in the context of the September 30th, 2020 hearing where Comey was allegedly lying to Congress. You remember we explained that one at the time, and that it doesn't, right. So they obviously thought up until 2 weeks ago that it really was, McCabe, and the fact that it turns out to be Richman means that the case they've filed against Comey can't stand logically. It doesn't make any sense. And then, of course, during that hearing, Senator Ted Cruz asked Comey about his prior testimony to try and bring it back in, or extend the statute of limitations so that he could get him on charges of lying in 2020, because 2017 was likely too far back in order to get any prosecution going in time to make it under the statute of limitations. So that whole thing falls apart. Plus, of course, all of the questions about whether or not Lindsey Halligan can even be the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. We'll explore this some more tomorrow, I'm sure.
From networksradio.com.
I know, it's really tough to get everything in under the wire.
You've been listening to Kagro in the morning with David Waldman.
But we don't have to cover everything, and we don't have to be the only program you listen to in order to get the news. Of course, the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy comes up next. Justice Putnam will round up other news from around the country and then around the world, including underreported by U.S. major media. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney delivered a powerful speech at the University of Ottawa where he showed how Canada can fight back against Trump and win. Should be interesting. Stay tuned.